Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Fins Nation. I'm your host, Louis Song, and today what we're going to be discussing is actually going to be different than what I initially intended. Originally, I went over to the OnlyFins Discord server to ask what I should talk about, and they said that I should talk about free agents that the Dolphins could pick up besides someone like a Dalvin Cook. But I have already done a show like that previously, and I probably will eventually do so again just as to kind of update the situation as it comes along. But what I wanted to talk about right now was something that I was actually browsing Twitter on. For anybody who is still out there on Twitter, they're currently going through some, shall we say, struggles. But what I wanted to talk about was something that was being put on Twitter by Dov Kleiman. I believe that's how you say his name anyway. He is somebody who works as a editor. He's a writer for Bro Bible. So quite frankly, he has a big following. I will say that. So now, what I will go ahead and talk about is this tweet that he put up there. ESPN apparently ranked all 32 NFL teams by roster, and their list consisted of from the best to the worst. And I want to talk about what I saw on this list because, honestly, it kind of still baffles me that we're playing this game. I won't go into it until the show actually starts, so let's just do this real quick. You all know what I'm about to say. If you haven't already done so, you need to make sure that you go check out our friends over there at You Break Wheel Fix, because You Break Wheel Fix is a complete automotive wheel solution. If you've ever parked too close to the sidewalk curb, You Break Wheel Fix specializes in the repair of damaged wheels from bends, cracks, and curb rash. Or maybe your wheels are faded or peeling. You don't need to replace them, as You Break Wheel Fix can refinish them to like new. Offering complete refinish options through powder coating, machining, and polishing, You Break Wheel Fix is the answer to all of your wheel needs. And if you're just looking to give your ride a new look, You Break Wheel Fix also offers many car customizing options, such as new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, performance upgrades, window tinting, and suspension modifications. Located just south of Aventura, you can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at youbreakwheelfix.com. They are really active on all social media platforms at You Break Wheel Fix, so shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and get an estimate in just minutes. So don't delay, go to You Break Wheel Fix and start customizing your ride to show off your Dolphins fandom today. This show is also brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is a revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues. Whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each, it's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares, special Taco Tuesday promos, special Flex Fridays where you can get your money back if you lose or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. With offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up. So use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, that's promo code 5, FIVE. Go to PrizePicks.com, deposit your $100, and let PrizePicks give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with and get started winning today. All right, folks, so here's the deal that I saw. So, once again, I was looking at a tweet sent out by Dov Kleiman. I don't know if that's how you say his name or not. Maybe I'm wrong. If anybody wants to correct me, feel free to let me know. With that being said, what exactly is it that I am taking objection to? So ESPN, once again, ranked all 32 NFL teams by the quality of their roster. And their list from best to worst, this was their top 10. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to list them from the worst to best. So at number 10 was the New York Jets. Number 9, the Cleveland Browns. Number 8, the San Francisco 49ers. Number 7, the Los Angeles Chargers. I almost said San Diego Chargers. Los Angeles Chargers. Number 6 is the Dallas Cowboys. Number 5 is the Cincinnati Bengals. Number 4 is the Miami Dolphins. Now, you may have noticed that I still haven't mentioned a very specific team. And that's because they're over the Dolphins. Number 3 is the Buffalo Bills. Number 2 is the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 1 is, of course, this is not a shocker anywhere, Kansas City Chiefs. So now we're talking about the rosters here, right? That's what I figured we were doing here. We were talking about just the quality of the NFL roster. And if we're talking only about the quality of the NFL roster, then I just have one real question for all the pundits at ESPN. Not that I want to just crap on all of the people who just lost their jobs over there. My condolences to them, and I hope they land on their feet really soon because it's no fun for anybody when they end up not having an income anymore. But with that being said, the people who are over there at ESPN making these rankings, it just kind of baffles me that we're even having this discussion right now because you put the Miami Dolphins at 4. On the one hand, that's very flattering because now they're in the top 5 of the entire NFL when we're talking about quality of roster. That's great. But you have the Buffalo Bills at 3 and the Eagles at 2 and the Chiefs at 1. Okay. The Eagles, I get their placement. They are an absolutely stacked team from top to bottom on offense, on defense, everywhere. They're awesome. The issues that I kind of have here is with Buffalo at 3 and Kansas City at 1. And I suspect I know exactly why they did what they did here. And if that's what they're going for, then it honestly bothers me a whole lot. Because watch this. I'm going to go ahead and just break it down for you guys. I'm not even going to use the Miami Dolphins as the benchmark here because I want to go ahead and use the Philadelphia Eagles, who were listed as number 2 on the list of the roster here. So just going down this list here, we have at wide receiver, right? You have this guy, Devonta Smith, who was the other guy the Dolphins could have drafted instead of Jalen Waddle. Now, I would not trade Jalen Waddle for Devonta Smith, but we can't just sit here and say Devonta Smith hasn't been really good for the Philadelphia Eagles since he was drafted. He has been. He's been very good. But not only that, they actually added A.J. Brown to their roster. And A.J. Brown, we all know how much he deserves to be respected. He's one of the top-tier wide receivers in the NFL right now. And they have some other guys there who can actually get the job done as role player. Kay Watkins, you have Greg Ward, the Joseph Nagata, I don't know how you say his name. I apologize if I messed it up. Tyree Cleveland, Devon Allen. There's a few guys who can contribute on there. Dallas Goedert is there as the tight end. You have on the offensive line, you still have Lane Johnson there. He's been a solid player for them all this time. At the running back position, they got rid of Miles Sanders, but they went ahead and supplemented that. They added DeAndre Swift. They have Trey Sermon there. Rashad Penny is there as well. Kenneth Gainwell. Those are some good guys at the running back. They have a pretty good stack of running backs there. And, of course, at quarterback, you have Jalen Hurts, who just got himself a massive contract from the Philadelphia Eagles. And it was well-deserved. He played fantastic for them. As a backup, you have Marcus Mariota. Honestly, all things considered, you could definitely do a lot worse at that position. Speaking of now we're going to go on defensive side of the ball. Hassan Reddick as a pass rusher, pretty not too bad, all things considered there. Keep going down the list. You have, obviously, the defensive line is absolutely solid still. Fletcher Cox, still a really good player. They picked up Jalen Carter in the draft. Josh Sweat. You have other guys. Derek Barnett, he's still there. Darius Slay is still there. They brought in guys all over the place. James Bradbury is still there. He is still a solid player. Jason Kelsey is a center. You have so many really good players on this roster. They are stacked from top to bottom, and they're going to be pushing for a championship once again. Now, I want to compare that real quick to the Kansas City Chiefs roster, okay? Because I just mentioned, let's start with the wide receiver position, right? I started with pointing out that they have Devonta Smith, and they also have A.J. Brown, who they added. So let's look at the wide receiver core for the Kansas City Chiefs, okay? You have Jerrion Early, Justin Watson, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I remember his name a little bit. Kadarius Toney, who had to get his, let's say, his career revitalized in Kansas City. He might have something to offer there. Justin Ross, John Ross. He's a speed guy. And let's see, I'm trying to go down this list here and looking for somebody I would recognize. Cornell Powell, Sky Moore, Richie James, Ty Freifogel, Kakoa Crawford. Who is the star wide receiver with this team? I guess in hindsight, you could say anybody because of the quarterback position, but I'm going to get my point is going to be in there in a moment here. So, wide receiver, not that impressive. Travis Kelce obviously is going to be the top target, I would imagine, for Patrick Mahomes just because he knows him very well. He's going to be getting a lot of catches in the future. But Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce. He can do anything you want. So, but aside from that, though, who else is on there? Noah Gray, Jody Fortson, Matt Bushman, Kendall Blanton. Maybe I just haven't watched enough Kansas City football. Maybe there's something I'm missing here. But just going off the roster here, right? Let's look at. I'm going in order of what positions I'm seeing here. Prince Tega Wanagho as a tackle, Darian Kinnard. Then at safety, Justin Reed. Okay, Justin Reed. I recognize that name. Nothing else interesting there. Running back, Isaiah Pacheco. LaMichael Perrine, Jerick McKinnon, okay, running backs, pretty good. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, okay, not too bad. So a good running back core, that's fine. So I understand that. Here's the real one, right? Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL, right? No questions asked. Nobody even comes close. Their offensive line's pretty good. Joe Thuney as a guard, Lucas Niang as an offensive lineman. You've got other guys in there. They went and got Danny Shelton as a nose tackle. I recognize him. So just keep going down that list here. And I'm just trying to find somebody that I would look at and say, okay, that moves the needle for me. And again, maybe this is just a simple case of I don't recognize a whole lot of people on this list because I don't watch a whole lot of Kansas City football. But I feel like that if they were going to make a whole lot of waves with their roster, their overall roster, they have Deion Bush as a defensive back. Okay, sure. Aside from that, I'm just trying to figure this whole thing out. What makes the roster for the Kansas City Chiefs so incredible, so unquestioned in their quality? I'm just trying to figure it out. If your logic is simply that Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback and that's all you need to know, fine. I get it. I don't agree with you, but I get it. Because, once again, I've said this so many times on so many different shows over the years, it takes more than a quarterback to become, like, a long-time, like, dynasty. I guess the Kansas City Chiefs are trying to prove that wrong simply because they've already won 2 Super Bowls with Patrick Mahomes at the helm. So I understand. I get it. It's really hard to argue that the Kansas City Chiefs are not the best team in the NFL. They did just win the Super Bowl after all. But if we're talking about the entirety of the roster, you can't just say, oh, well, you know, the two Super Bowl contending teams, obviously they're the best. But now this brings us back to the Dolphins. This brings us back to the Dolphins and the fact that the Buffalo Bills are ahead of them on the roster. Right? The roster breakdown, they say, oh, the Bills definitely have a better roster than the Miami Dolphins. If I'm not mistaken, and I'm also bringing this up because we just had several shows just last week talking about comparing the Buffalo Bills to the Miami Dolphins. And I even referenced a Buffalo Bills podcast, Locked On Bills with Joe Marino. Locked On Bills went over the defense, and in all but one category, a Buffalo Bills analyst went out of their way to say, you know what, the Dolphins have a better defense most of the time. The only thing that he said that the Dolphins were not better at on the defensive side of the ball was the safety position. And that's just because they're not sure what the quality is with Javon Holland next to him. So you have Javon Holland and who? Is it going to be Brandon Jones? Is it going to be Deshaun Elliott, who they just picked up in free agency? Is it going to be someone else entirely? That I get. It's hard to argue that when you have Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer as your safety duo. Those two have been the anchors of that defense for many, many years in Buffalo. That part I get. But you're trying to tell me that with everything that the Dolphins added in the offseason, you're looking at this wide receiver core. So who's the wide receiver core for the Buffalo Bills? They just picked up Trent Sherfield. Okay, we saw what he did for the Dolphins last year, but I don't consider him like somebody who's going to absolutely change the way the offense functions. They have Stephon Diggs, who is very upset right now. Gabe Davis is still there. Okay. Who else is there that we're going to be looking at here? There's a trio of rookies: Jalen Wayne, Brian Thompson, Justin Shorter. Another one, Tyrell Shavers, another rookie. Aside from Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, and now we know, of course, about Trent Sherfield, what does that wide receiver core look like to you? Does it look like it beats the Miami Dolphins? Let's just go run down the Miami Dolphins list again, just so everybody remembers what it is that they have here. First of all, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Those two alone make a 1-2 punch that I feel like would absolutely blow the doors off the Buffalo Bills. Because even if you somehow think Stephon Diggs is loads better than Tyreek Hill, I honestly, if you are an objective person, I feel like the best that you can do is say that Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs are basically right there with each other. That's the best you can do, really. And then you have Jalen Waddle. I'm going to pick Jalen Waddle over Gabe Davis any day of the week and twice on Sunday. Then you add on there Cedric Wilson Jr., who did not get a chance to really play all that much because of his injury, but he was solid with the Dallas Cowboys. You have River Craycraft. He's a role player along the lines of somebody like a Trent Sherfield would be. So that's the Trent Sherfield equivalent. And then you're going to keep going down the list here, right? Braxton Berrios, who we just picked up from the New York Jets. And then you have Robbie Chosen. We already know what he can do. We've seen him play. He used to absolutely destroy us when he was with the New York Jets. Just catching passes over the top and absolutely wrecking the Dolphins defense. And now we hear he's making waves in training camp, and you're expecting me to believe that somehow the Buffalo Bills have a better wide receiver core? Oh, well, maybe that wasn't part of what they were talking about. Okay, fine. Let's take a look at the tight end position. On offense, yes, I can understand why they would feel like the Dolphins don't have very good tight ends. Dawson Knox and Dalton Dalton Kincaid, I think, are obviously better than what the Dolphins have to offer there. Durham Smythe, Eric Saubert, and then they're hoping that Elijah Higgins and Tanner Connor provide something there. So I get that part of it. Okay, fine. Your tight ends are better than the Dolphins. I'll give you guys that one. How about the running back position? Let's take a look at your running backs. You have Latavius Murray, you have Naheem Hines, Damian Harris, James Cook. Meanwhile, the Dolphins, they have Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr., they have Devon Achane, who they picked up in the draft, and still holding on to this, but there is a possibility that Dalvin Cook may still end up showing up in Miami. He's the brother of James Cook, who is also on Buffalo. Go figure. He's trying to live up to his big brother's legacy. Well, if it turns out that his big brother actually ends up being his AFC East rival, that should be a very interesting matchup. But I'll still take Dalvin over James at this point in their careers. So if you take Dalvin Cook out of the equation, I would say the Dolphins are comparable on the running back side of things with the Buffalo Bills. All right. Cool. Let's do the offensive line. Offensive line, I think that the Buffalo Bills may have a comparable offensive line to Miami, because if you think about it, at least at the very top, the Miami Dolphins actually don't have as bad of an offensive line as we're making it seem like. Obviously, Teron Armstead as the left tackle is one of the best in football when he's healthy. You have Robert Hunt as your right guard. He's been solid, absolutely solid, ever since he got here to Miami. You have Connor Williams as your center. So really the only issue is right tackle and left guard. And left guard, maybe something happens there. Maybe Dan Feeney ends up starting and he ends up looking better than he's supposed to. Austin Jackson, we're supposedly hearing he's very receptive to teaching, so we'll see on that. I'm not going to hold my breath on it. But at least 3 of the 5 positions are solid. The Buffalo Bills, I'm trying to look at their offensive line. Mitch Morse as the center. All right, so there's probably something there. He's been pretty solid, all things considered. They have other guys. They picked up Osiris Torrance in the draft. Connor McGovern. He's a solid veteran guy. So comparable. I would say they're comparable. Oh, Brandon Shell is a backup for them now. Ha! Go figure. So they have people there on the offensive line, but I'm not going to sit here and say that beyond a shadow of a doubt, the Buffalo Bills offensive line is superior to Miami's. I can't say that. I just can't. Maybe their depth. I don't know. I don't watch enough Buffalo Bills football to know everything about them. But at least at the top of the pile, I'd say the Dolphins and the Bills have a comparable offensive line. So that's everything on offense. Now let's look at the defense. We talked about the defense already, right? We talked about the linebacker position. We talked about Jerome Baker and David Long Jr. and how those two guys together beat out somebody like Matt Milano and whoever happens to be the guy next to him. Because we had that discussion. We don't know who's going to be the guy to take over for Tremaine Edmonds now that he's gone. So who's it going to be? Oh, but they have a lot of young, promising dudes who might be able to get the job done. Maybe. As far as pass rushers go, okay, you guys have Von Miller. You guys have Shane Ray. You have other dudes who can probably get that job done. Terrific. You know who the Miami Dolphins have for pass rushers? They have Malik Reed that they picked up in free agency. Jalen Phillips, who is still proving to be an excellent player. Greg Rousseau for the Bills. Jalen Phillips. Those two were neck and neck for a little while. And now I think Jalen Phillips has eclipsed him as far as I'm concerned here. Then you have Bradley Chubb, obviously. I think he beats out whoever the other guy is for the Buffalo Bills who's going to be doing the pass rushing. So, quite frankly, I think the Dolphins beat them out there. You have the cornerback position. Even with Tre'Davious White, if he's healthy again, even then, Joe Marino said the Dolphins have a better cornerback situation than the Buffalo Bills do. Jalen Ramsey, Xavier Howard, Nick Needham, Kader Kohu, and then so many more guys that can come in here and play. And they're looking at me like, oh, well, the Buffalo Bills have a better roster. What's the one position I haven't talked about? The quarterback. This all boils down to the quarterback. Everything about these two teams, Buffalo and Miami, boils down to who is their quarterback. That's the only reason I feel like that the Buffalo Bills are ranked higher than the Miami Dolphins on that list. They won't let it go. They don't want to admit that the Dolphins might have actually eclipsed the Buffalo Bills in any way, shape, or form. They are looking at this quarterback situation saying, oh yeah, Josh Allen is better than Tua Tagovailoa, which I'm not even going to argue against. I'm not going to even argue because we've only seen Tua do it 1 year with Mike McDaniel here as the head coach. Meanwhile, Josh Allen has been really good for a couple of years now. So, okay. I'm not even going to argue that Josh Allen isn't better than Tua. We'll see what happens this season. But To go ahead and stake the entire roster of an NFL team based on the quality of their quarterback, I just feel like that's lazy analysis. And it kind of bothers me that we're still playing this game acting like the Buffalo Bills have not actually regressed in some form, while the Miami Dolphins have taken leaps and bounds to improve themselves. I haven't even talked about the coaching. Did we talk about the coaching? Mike McDaniel has been fantastic, and I know that Sean McDermott has done a really good job for the Buffalo Bills, but you'd seen what Mike McDaniel did. He turned this whole franchise around in seemingly 1 year, and this year he got the best defensive coordinator that money can buy to go ahead and take over the defense for him. Meanwhile, the guy who was running their defense for the past several years, Leslie Frazier, he literally got chased out of town because he was basically saying, I don't want to do this anymore, and Sean McDermott was like, have a nice day. So you want me to look at this team, this entirety of the roster, and you're telling me Buffalo is better? The only thing that I can think of that would legitimize that claim is if you're basically saying Josh Allen is so amazing, he's so unstoppable, he's so perfect that the only reason that they're higher than him is because of him. Nope, not buying it, ESPN. And if anybody who's listening to this is going to go ahead and want to argue with me, I would love to hear your takes. Feel free to leave them in the comments below. That's going to be it for this show. Go to You Break Wheel Fix. Reach out to Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 if you need to get your wheels fixed up or if you need to give your ride an upgrade. And go to PrizePicks.com. Use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and you will get your initial deposit matched up to $100. So you can go ahead and get started winning today. We will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Fins Nation.